So, welcome everybody. Today, I'm very happy to be doing a part Q&A, part interview with Lana Sackwild, who's a master's in science, correct? Is that it? MSc?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Master's in science, consciousness, spirituality, and transpersonal psychology. And Lana has been a frequent lucid dreamer since she was 5 years old, actually. And I'm sure she'll be talking more about that. So Lana is a practitioner, researcher, and guide for individuals who want to learn lucid dreaming. And specifically for the purposes of, for those of you who are just arriving, would you mind please just muting your microphones? Thanks. So Lana is a researcher, practitioner, and guide for individuals who want to learn lucid dreaming for spiritual growth, healing, and life success. And Lana's academic research involves studying lucid dreams right now or as a therapeutic tool for depression. Is that all correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Lana, why don't you go ahead and kick it off? Or actually, do you want me to start with a question?
Yeah, sure. If we're doing it question style, right? I just put a screen as what we're basically going to cover, or the kind of flow that we are going to go through, starting with my exposure to lucid dream work, utilizing it for personal growth, different powerful experiences that I've had, leading to spiritual awakening, some of the research that I've done with different participants and their experiences. I also wanted to cover meditation whilst lucid, that was more linking into the Finder's Course and people there. Dreaming and the waking states, how much we dream, also touching a little bit on out-of-body experiences, astral projection, remote viewing, dimensional travel, different potentials for healing. And then we'll leave a bit of time for Q&A, but I don't know whether you would prefer us to do Q&A as we go, or...
Yes. Yeah. Let's do Q&A as we go. And for people that have Q&A, since there's a presentation and I won't see you necessarily if you are raising your hand, what you can do is just put your Q&A in the chat, and then we'll address your question. So maybe you could just give a little bit about your background, because I know you through some of our mutual acquaintances who are into different, transpersonal avenues of growth.
Yeah.
And basically, you've been having lucid dreams since age 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you learned at some point that you could use this tool for, overcoming fears and that sort of thing, and other different potentials. And eventually you started training other people in this. Mm-hmm. So what was it that got you started? How did you, what was it that got you started with lucid dreaming at age 5?
Yeah, it was actually younger. I think I might have been 3 or 4. But yeah, definitely very young. And I got started through night terrors. So as a very young child, I was having a series of just very scary dreams. I think at that time, my dreams were, I kind of described them as like the Disney villain-esque type thing. So I'd find myself in, these dark, mystical forests, and there would be, an evil character or something like that. And I found it very scary. And at that time, I decided, I was feeling nervous to go to sleep as a child, and I was watching a lot of cartoons during the day, which you can see this kind of CITV logo. That was the cartoon channel that I was watching in the UK. And I decided that, that night, if I went to sleep and I was seeing something scary, I could push that CITV button, and that would turn everything into cartoons. And that was obviously what lucid dreaming is. At the time, I didn't know that, but I also didn't know as a child, that there were any boundaries to what you could really do in the dream space. So yeah, I remember distinctly, going to sleep, having another scary dream, and remembering that fact about, okay, I'm going to change everything to cartoon, and the CITV button appeared, and I pushed that, and then the whole forest, all the characters in there, everything morphed into cartoon. And I thought that was so funny. And I was laughing a lot. And I remember I could change, the size or the shape of people. And I kind of discovered like, wow, I have a lot of power in the dream space. I don't have to experience night terrors. I can actually change the dream to be what I want to see. And that's kind of where it all began.
Got it. Yeah. Beautiful. It's really neat. So even just as a kid, you had this intuition that, okay, there's a scary thing happening. I'm just going to turn it all into these kind of harmless cartoons.
Yeah, and it's actually quite common. I think about when I was doing research, it was like about 10 to 13 or 14% of children have that same experience when they're very, very young. They start lucid dream practices through scary dreams and night terrors. So it's quite a common thing, or more common than maybe people accept.
Gotcha. Very cool. And so how did it, like, as you got older, how did this develop, and in what different ways did you see that it could be used?
Yeah, I used it. I kind of realized like, okay, well, this is great. It's like my own virtual reality, almost my own practicing ground for things. So one of the first things that I started using it for was riding a bike. I remember I was really scared about riding a bike for some reason, and started that, with stabilizers. But I wanted to be like the cool kids and ride without that. So I remember one of the first things I decided was I was going to practice riding a bike in my dream state, because I knew if I was doing that whilst I was dreaming, I couldn't get hurt, which was, I think, one of the main fears about learning to ride a bike was, falling off, getting hurt. So I started using it for things like that. I started using it for practicing tests in school, going through spelling tests and revising, I guess. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting that you were able to use it for spelling tests, because most of the time, what part of the brain is it that has to do with language? Is it Wernicke's area? Yeah.
Maybe you know more than me about that.
Okay, I might be totally getting that wrong too, but there's a particular part of the brain that has to do with language, and
Yeah.
one of the reasons that often people know that they're lucid dreaming is that okay, so there's from the chat here, Braca and Wernicke's area. So there's a part of the brain that has to do with language, and a lot of times that's dormant during sleep. And so sometimes a trigger for the fact that we're dreaming is because we look at the writing on the wall or something, and it's all kind of blurry and moving or shifting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've also had those experiences where you look at text. I mean, that's quite a common reality check for dream work, right? It's like you look at text and look away and look back, and it's changed. Also in the dream space, you can stabilize the space, and it's very visual. So I wasn't necessarily practicing through writing, but it was more like being able to almost like a teleprompter, I would describe it, like seeing words scrolling. And that's what I used to do. I used to see words scrolling on like a TV screen and read through them. And I also used this up until I was quite a lot older, I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was living in Japan and I was practicing Japanese kanji, and I was in a class of 30 people where about 25 of them were Chinese students, so they were very good at the Chinese characters. But through lucid dreaming, I was able to revise all this kanji, either painting it with my finger kind of in the sky, and I would see trails of it. And so I would get really high marks in these classes, and all these Chinese kids were like, "How is this white girl so good at Chinese characters?"
Gotcha. Very cool. Um, so, and in terms of, so those are a few things we could say, like riding a bike or writing or even learning Chinese in terms of skills.
Yeah.
And what about for things that are like dealing with anxiety or depression or other difficult things, challenging things that people go through?
Yeah. I don't remember if I think I go into this a bit later in the presentation as well, but yeah, I realized that it's very good for emotional content. So if I ever had trouble with friends, or I want to, I think for humans naturally, we often kind of role play a scenario in our head, right? When you've had an argument with someone, when you're feeling anxious about something, you start going through what the conversation with a person might be like, or if you have an interview coming up, you might start having dreams about it where you're late to the interview or you're messing up or that kind of thing. So I started implementing those things into my dreaming practice as well, whether it was just discussing something with a dream character or friend and seeing how I could play out that scenario, or practicing for things like presentations, interviews, things that might make me feel anxious. By doing that in the lucid dream state first, I then felt like I'd got extra practice in, or I felt more confident about what my answers would be. So then going into an interview or into a presentation that I might have felt anxious about, I didn't feel as much like that as I did in the beginning because I'd done a run through.
Got it. So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like you might be a little bit of an outlier just in terms of it's almost like my sense is that this was happening often enough such that you'd be there, you'd know you were dreaming, and then you kind of, is it that you have a conscious agenda, or is it that you just find yourself there and you're kind of automatically going through these things?
It's a bit of both. I mean, if I wanted to induce a lucid dream, then I would go through my journals and look at what's coming up for me recently. So I found that there would be certain patterns of things, and I would categorize those things into dream characters, environments, emotions, and objects. So I might say tomorrow I wanted to induce a lucid dream for a particular reason. I might go through this past week of dreams, just regular dreams that I've had, and notice like, oh, okay, in 3 of the dreams, I was in my old home, my childhood home, or in a couple of the dreams, my mom was there and she's not here with me in Colorado. So I would look at what are the dream signs coming up, recurring dream signs that will get me lucid because they're not normal in my waking life. And I would keep highlighting those things and then set an intention. So maybe something as simple as the next time I'm in my childhood home, I'll get lucid and do said task.
Gotcha. Very cool. So a question from the group here. Do you witness your lucid dreams while dreaming? Wayne, could you clarify a little bit what you mean by that? Because I guess the definition of a lucid dream is that you have a good degree of awareness while you're dreaming, and thus you're aware of the dream. So I'm just curious as to what you mean, if you could clarify. You can feel free to unmute if you want.
in a way that answers my question. I wasn't clear whether a lucid dream implied that there's something aware while a dream is taking place.
Yeah, actually, okay. Wayne, that's a great point. So for those, so I guess I went in assuming that, assuming whatever I assumed, but maybe you could just clarify what your definition is, Lana, of lucid dreaming.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of different levels to lucidity in the dream space. At the most basic level, it's exactly that. It's just being aware that you're dreaming whilst you're in the dream. And a lot of people have this and don't necessarily act out on anything. A lot of people have, woken up from a dream before and been like, oh, I kind of knew that I was in a dream, right? But then they just continue with the dream scenario. And then once you get to a bit of a higher level of lucidity, it's obviously recognizing that you're in the dream and maybe acting out some intention or changing the dream narrative and performing tasks or asking questions, speaking with your subconscious or other dream characters, different parts of the self, and kind of grows in that way. So some people believe that the more you can change, the more lucid you are, or the more stable the dream is whilst lucid, that's a very high level of lucidity. Other people believe a very high level of lucidity is when you're in the dream, very aware, and it's stable, and you're able to let the dream play out and just observe, and you'll remain lucid.
Right, right. Because like I've had experiences before where it seemed like there was a purpose. In fact, I could feel a purpose.
Yeah.
And when I tried to deviate from that purpose, then everything got, it was like the dream wasn't holding itself together anymore.
Yeah, people kind of say the dream starts collapsing. Things might get blurry or just all go black, or the space might shake, kind of like an earthquake. It's different for different people. And it obviously depends on what you want to use the space for. And I enjoy both. I enjoy sometimes getting lucid with an intention and performing a task or asking questions. Other times I really enjoy being lucid and just letting it play out and seeing, what is this dream trying to show me? What do all the things that I'm observing mean for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a question from the group here as to if you could maybe share a technique, maybe a simple one, that people could use to become more lucid during the dream space, or during the dream state, rather.
Yeah, I would say that, step one, if you watch any kind of lucid dreaming related content or books or anything, people will always say step one is recording your dreams. So when you wake up, going through those kind of categories that I said, especially if you don't have great dream recall, staying still and just thinking about who were the characters in my dream, where was I, what was I feeling, were there any notable objects or things that I did, and trying to note those things down. And then, as I mentioned before, once you start doing that, even those basic, 4 categories, just writing even a word about it or feeling into when you wake up how you felt in the dream. The dream that you were having often kind of lays over into the next morning, which is why, if you have a nightmare, you wake up sweating, or if you were having an amazing dream, you might wake up really, really happy and excited. So emotion is very easy to build recall. But taking those things and then repeating patterns. Okay, I'm always in my old school or my old home, or okay, my mom's always there, or a random person from high school is always there, or oh, I always get really angry in my dreams, or I always get very upset. Noticing different patterns and linking those to things called reality checks, which are actions that don't work the same in the lucid dream space. one that I share that's very, very simple is called a hand flip. And it's literally looking at your hands and flipping them over like this. And whilst you're dreaming, if you do this, the dream space really struggles to replicate your hands, because there's so many different lines, patterns, things going on our hands. So once you start flipping them over, lots of different things can happen that make it very obvious you're dreaming, such as I've had my hands turn into bear paws or bird claws or old, witchy hands, or I've seen blank void spaces in my hands. You might have 10 fingers on one hand, lots of different things that make it very clear that, okay, I'm dreaming right now. So linking that to one of the categories, like the next time I see my mom, and I'm going to recognize I'm dreaming and flip my hand over to check that. Or the next time I'm in whichever space, my old school, my old home, I'm going to do a reality check. And the one we mentioned earlier, reading text is a really common one, looking at some writing, looking away and looking back, and all the words might have changed. Same thing with checking the time is a really common one, and the time not working very well. But those are just three that are really easy to do.
Got it. So basically, I guess you could call it incubation. Is that it? Well, not just incubation, but there's, I guess the whole process of incubation is remembering what you dreamt the night before and just starting to pay attention, like starting to take an interest.
Yeah, that kind of whole bout of techniques is called a dream-induced lucid dream. So it's recognizing things within the dreams that you're having to get you lucid. So dream signs, and I think that's the easiest way to do it. And I think it helps with building awareness throughout our waking days, our waking state. When we think about those things whilst we're awake, it helps tune in our awareness to, where am I right now? Who am I with? How am I feeling? And it just kind of brings us back to that present moment during the day. And that also helps build lucidity during the night.
Got it. Yeah. So dream-induced lucid dreaming, that is dialed. That's what they call that in lucid dreaming studies. Yeah. And then there's wild, which is waking-induced lucid dreaming. And so is the, are these sort of suggestions that you're talking about before bed, would that be a version of wild, like where you're suggesting, okay, when I go to bed, I'll remember if I see this, that, and the other that I've been having dreams about the night before, I will remember that I'm dreaming, or this will be a trigger.
Exactly. Things that you're doing whilst you're awake to lead into the dream state. So things like setting an intention, meditating on it, even whilst falling asleep, breathing for 5 breaths and then repeating like I'm dreaming right now, I'm dreaming right now, or saying a mantra as you fall asleep. Some people do kind of finger tapping just very lightly next to them. But yeah, if you search wild or dialed on Google, there's just a plethora of all these different techniques. And I personally feel that it's great to look over your own dream journals and find what comes up for you specifically, because what works for one person might not work for another person. And I think dreams are quite individualized things,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are great tips. Mm-hmm. There's a question from Anna. How many times a night do you typically lucid dream when you're trying to use the time to study or work on something? Do you feel rested enough?
Yeah, I've noticed that if I have a lucid dream, it will usually come in a series. So if I have one lucid dream, usually that same night I'll have 2 or 3 in a row. And I'll kind of, I guess I've built up that awareness. So when I wake up from a lucid dream, I try not to move. I'll either use a voice recorder to note down my dream, not turn on the lights or start writing and doing things that can really wake me up. But I'll recognize I'm lucid, record it quickly, and then I can quite easily go back into another lucid dream. So I think that's quite common for people as well, or maybe having a couple, you know, if you have one night, maybe the next night getting lucid again. And the end part of that was, do I feel rested? Yeah. I feel amazing after having a lucid dream. I feel like I've been in a very deep sleep, and usually, you know, I've uncovered something more about myself. So I wake up feeling very excited, motivated, you know, usually making some kind of discovery. So I personally feel really great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure that that's been other people's experience here too with that. It's certainly been mine. So I know that we're maybe going out of order here in terms of your slide deck, but one thing that some lucid dream practitioners talk about is meditating during the lucid dream, or the potentials for both meditation, deepening our contemplative practice, as well as healing potentials. And let's just treat those as two different questions. But for now, in terms of meditation, yeah, okay, you've got a slide for it. Okay, well, take it away.
Yeah, so this is a really common thing that people love to try whilst lucid. I think it's great because you have less distraction, I guess I would call it, because when you're in the waking state, you're using different parts of your mind, different parts of your brain. A lot of different thoughts are coming in. You've got the external environment, you've got the other things going on with your day. So I've found that meditation whilst lucid is a very profound and deep experience. And I recommend this technique called the clear technique, which I've kind of adapted from to make it what works for me more. But the original technique is by a woman called Claire Johnson. And she is great. She has loads of books on lucid dreaming, and she specifically focuses on lucid dreaming for helping children, or children with night terrors, and kind of helping them become more empowered. So the technique is called clear because it goes through that order. So the C stands for calm, which is really important for the lucid dream space. A lot of people will, you know, use these techniques, do a reality check, enter the lucid dream and be like, oh my God, I'm dreaming, it's happening. That brings in a lot of excitement and it wakes you up, which is a very disappointing, you know, entry into dream work, because you were ready to experience lucidity and you woke yourself up. So step one is simply breathing. I tell people, you know, take about 10 deep breaths as you would when you're sitting down to do a meditation. Calm yourself, breathing slowly and deeply, counting in the dream space. It calms everything. So a lot of people, when they enter a dream for the first time, there might be loads of people around. It might be very busy, and that might be a reflection of your mind or things going on. And just breathing really slowly and calming yourself will also calm the environment around you. The second step is the L, which stands for look. And again, that ties into your reality checks that I use. I say, look at your hands, you know, check that you're dreaming, know that you're lucid, look around at the environment. Some people have found that staring at things wakes them up from the dream. So I would just say, look at everything, kind of as if you're building everything around you.
Can we pause on that for 1 second?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is something that it even talked about in Inception, I believe. Okay, no, I might be confusing that with something else. Okay, the movie Inception is about lucid dreaming. Yeah, I think it was Robert Wagner's book who had said, if you stare at things, it makes the dream kind of implode on itself, or it collapses the dream.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think this is tied into mindset. I've definitely had lucid dreams where I've inspected certain things very closely and nothing has happened. It's been completely fine. But the mind plays games on us, you know, and if we believe that staring at something collapses the dream, that's going to happen. So I think it's probably partially science. There's probably some reason behind why that destabilizes the dream, and partially mindset as well. But I love, I mean, once you get lucid, you want to look around, especially if it's some of the first times, because it's really mind-blowing how it looks just like everything looks right now, wherever you are, like with your table, the computer, everything looks just like waking reality. So it's quite an incredible experience just to look all around you and take that in. You're going to want to look at everything anyway, so that's a great part of it. The E goes into engagement, and I wrote become a baby because that helps you really stabilize wherever you are. I write become a baby as, you know, babies, they want to engage with everything. If they see something, they want to touch it, smell it, taste it, and all of that. And that's what you want to do. You know, start touching the walls, touch any objects near you, breathe in, smell what are you smelling? Can you taste anything? Can you hear music? Really engaging with the environment, and that in particular helps the dream kind of solidify, become more of a solid ground for you to work in. The A is standing for announcement. There can be a lot going on in the dream environment, and it's very easy to slip back into a regular dream, especially if you have dream characters coming over to talk to you, or you're getting tied into something else going on. So just simply announcing, I'm lucid dreaming, I'm dreaming right now. Another great way to stay lucid and lengthen the time spent lucid. Also just doing a simple mathematic equation, simple addition or whatever works for you, seems to help build that kind of mental alertness in your mind. You can also announce things if the dream is not stable, or if the dream seems to be a little bit blurry. Announcing things like clear vision now can really heighten the colors, the vividness, those kind of things. And then lastly is recalling your intention, which in this case would be starting a meditation or beginning your meditation, starting to count your breath. Other people like to take it, you know, a step further in the meditation. So maybe rather than just doing a simple sitting meditation as you would in the waking state, doing things like asking to receive something, like I'm ready to experience total peace, or let me experience total happiness, calmness, let me experience enlightenment. And obviously those things are going to be very personalized to who you are as a person and what your thoughts about that experience will be. But those are a couple of different stages of the technique that I like to use when I want to experience meditation whilst lucid.
Gotcha. No, that's great. To dovetail off of that a little bit, there's some thought within the lucid dream literature about the consciousness behind the dream itself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's something that you can speak to either from experience or just from the literature in terms of what that is, or in how that might be experienced.
Yeah, it's experienced differently for different people. A really common thing that seems to happen is kind of hearing this booming voice that almost, the best way I can describe it is kind of like a almost like the Truman Show experience, right? If any of you have seen that, where it's almost like realizing that you're in a play, or that there's something observing you, some kind of higher power, and it seems to be able to speak or direct things. So one example was recently I wanted to get lucid and reconnect with my deceased Nana. And so, I was in some kind of dream scenario. I think I was at a party, realized I wouldn't be there. It is another great technique during the quarantine, because we're not supposed to be meeting in large groups. So it's a really easy way to get lucid right now. And I wanted to see my Nana. So, I kind of spoke this out into the dream, and I had this almost Lion King moment where I was outdoors and I asked to see my Nana, and all the clouds in the sky start swirling, kind of like that scene where Simba is talking to Mufasa. Right. And the dream, this voice comes down from those clouds and tells me, you can't see her right now. And we kind of had a discussion about that, and that was a very strange experience for me, because seemingly you would think that part of the dream is part of the self. I like to think of dream characters or those kind of things as different parts of the self, but yeah, a lot of people have had discussions with this voice behind the dream, or entity consciousness behind the dream, as if it perhaps is not part of ourselves, and sometimes seems to know information that we don't know, or disagrees with us, or doesn't want to play a part in what we're trying to do whilst lucid.
Right. So some ostensibly higher form of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that match to your experiences? Does that sound like an accurate description, or what would you call it?
Yeah, I mean, I call it different things depending on the experience. I've called it my higher self. I've called it consciousness behind the dream, or the dream voice, the narrator of the dream. I think it depends on whatever you want to think of it as. There's definitely people who think everything inside the dream is definitely us, and there's other people who think differently. So, I don't want to tell people it's definitely this or definitely not, because we have no way of knowing that.
Right. Yeah. Right. And experientially, it seems like something that's greater than our local sense of self.
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk about like what things feel like, or what they seem like, or the phenomenology of things, without necessarily landing on an absolute sense of what they are. I think that's a safe way to play it.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I've definitely had very strange experiences with it, which I think go beyond myself or the knowledge that I have. And for that reason, I think it's maybe something beyond just me.
Got it. By the way, we're getting a little bit of feedback with the sound. I'm not sure what that is. If anybody has, I can't see everybody's microphone, but if you have your microphone on, I just ask, you mute it, please. Okay. All right. So, yeah, what was, in terms of healing potential, maybe this is a good time to talk about that, because, yeah, okay. Go for it.
Let me see. I think it was through. There we go. Yeah, different issues that people have been able to work on, and healing potentials. I mean, the biggest healing potentials that my work has led me to is healing through depression, anxiety, nightmares, trauma, negative thought patterns, but also physical healing is seemingly possible. And I can maybe tell I think I saved a dream. Yeah, this dream called Pavgoma that I would rank as one of my, top 3 kind of most powerful lucid explorations. And I can talk a bit about that.
Go for it.
So this dream was whilst I was conducting interviews for my research, and I was about to interview, about 10 people that week. And I woke up the day before the interviews, and I totally lost my voice. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, of course, it would happen on this day before I'm about to, do several interviews every day. I was really frustrated. I'm not someone that usually loses their voice. I use my voice all the time for my work. So it was quite a freak out moment. And that night, I began having this dream where I was on a train back in London, and I was with several of my old high school friends. We were going to watch a kind of girl band. There was this band of they were called the Tigers or something, and we were on the train to go to this bar to see them. We get to the bar, and one of my high school friends there is actually putting little ecstasy pills in people's drinks. And I remember watching the drinks and seeing him do this, and they're all kind of fizzing off or whatever. And everyone takes a sip of the drink. And I mention this because I think it's quite a weird experience in that's something I did 10 plus years ago. But yet in this dream that was very recent, that drug still had full effect over me. So in this dream, I drank the drink, and I start feeling the effects immediately, just total euphoria over my body. There's music playing in the bar we were in. So I get up to start dancing, and I'm in that kind of ecstasy state where I feel really free and flowing, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I forgot what this experience is like, and I wish I could feel more free or confident to dance and that kind of thing, or more in tune with the music in my normal waking state. And that thought immediately, flew me into, wait, where am I right now? Who am I with? I realize I'm in this bar with all these people that I haven't seen in 15 years. So I get lucid, and I remember that I'm having this throat problem. So I think, okay, I want to do something about this. So I walk over to another bar that's kind of around the corner, and I walk up to the barman there, and I used to say to him, hey, I'm having a really bad throat problem. Do you have anything that can help me? And he just looks at me in this way of like, oh, I've been expecting you, and I've got just the thing. And he kind of rummages down in between the bottles in the bar, and he gives me this huge blue bottle that says Pavgoma on it. And I've never really been able to work out why it said that. I kind of Googled it after and stuff, and it doesn't really link to anything, but that's what it said. And it consisted of basically the ingredients to make an omelet. It was like spinach, eggs, peppers, the different vegetables. And I drank this drink, and I could feel it very, strongly as I was drinking it. I could feel it like go all the way down my throat, kind of like it was coating it in this layer of like liquid, kind of like if you drank honey or something like that, or a really cold drink. Mm-hmm. And after doing that in the dream, I went on to complete several other tasks that I had in mind. But upon waking up, my voice was fine. It was like nothing had happened. And the day before, I was so panicked. I was so worried because I couldn't speak at all. Like my voice wasn't even a whisper. It was that kind of state where if you tried to speak, it was just crackling. And then I had this dream, drank this feeling kind of liquid, Pavgoma, woke up and I have my voice back. And I know that there's a man called Ed Kellogg. He does a lot of lucid dream research, specifically focused on healing. And he's found that there's something to do with that really liquid, or actually feeling something heal you in the dream space, increasing your chances of healing in the waking state, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what you're talking about reminds me of actually the way that people were treated in ancient Greece when they went to a place called the Asclepion, where people would talk to the priest, and then the priest would say, okay, well, just, relax and hang out with the snakes that were kind of wandering around, and take a nap, and pray to the god and take a nap. And a lot of times they would be visited by a being in their dream who would give them medicine. Then they would wake up and even have, I think, pretty close to biblical level healings sometimes. Yeah. On a physical level.
I mean, I'm lucky enough that I've never had any massive problem that I need to heal. So I'm yet to experience anything like that, and I'm grateful for not needing to do so. But I've certainly spoken to many people that have used lucid dreams for healing, much more severe problems. People talk about speeding up healing of broken bones, sports injuries. People speak about healing cancers, and they do truly believe that it's through the kind of visualization and physical process in the dream space that really helps with that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think there has to be something to even like, well, I don't want to get bogged down too much in the theory here, but yeah, the fact that we feel on some very deep level that something's happening. It's almost like we're tapping into the control panel of the body itself through the dream.
Yeah. It makes sense. And I feel that I kind of go into that when doing those kind of meditations in the dream state, or I've done meditations in the lucid dream state where I've been kind of like a self, or a very small version of myself, entering into my body, and I've been able to kind of see the inside of my body and go through the different areas and almost cleanse them, or have the intentions to cleanse them, and then woken up with, like less body pain or less of a sore back or those kind of things. So I think it's a very powerful state. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, this is great stuff. In terms of, you've got here discussions with the deceased, afterlife and soul connections. Did you want to maybe speak to that for a minute?
Sure. This was a really interesting year. I put powerful explorations of 2019 because I think, it changes for me year by year. I always like to think about the most recent things that I'm working on. And in 2019, I lost 3 people that I knew in my waking life. So that was a massive trigger of lucidity for me, with visitation dreams, where you get lucid because the person who has died visits you in the dream space, and you obviously realize that you wouldn't be with them. And this happened to me, I think I mentioned, with my Nana, who she died last year, and she was in her late 80s. And I had my first visitation dream with her the night after her funeral, where I was just walking down this kind of street. It looked a bit European, or maybe Germany or something like that. It was very snowy, and there were this kind of row of houses where the windows were on ground level, like next to the doors, these big pane glass windows. And as I was walking past one, I was kind of looking in, and I saw my Nana in one of these windows, but she was like in her 40s or early 40s, and I'd never seen her like that before, but I knew it was her. And so she opened this window and I went in, and I was so excited, and I was lucid, and I was like, oh my God, Nana, like I want to, ask you about the afterlife, and I had all these questions and thoughts about it, and she wouldn't cooperate at all. And I'd never had an experience quite like it in a lucid dream, where she very much seemed to have her own soul, her own control over whatever she was doing. Before she died, she'd had a stroke and lots of different medical issues. So she'd really struggled to walk around and do those types of things. She was in a lot of pain. And in this dream, when I was in this room with her, she just kept saying to me how happy she was, that she's like, I'm not in pain, I can walk around. And I was like, come and sit down with me. Let's talk about stuff. She's like, no, let me make you a cup of tea. Let me do stuff. And she was very happy to just be active and running around and cleaning. And she just kept saying that she was so happy to have her old body back. But it was definitely, I could feel into that it was her and her soul and her being. And that dream really changed my perception of what I think happens when we die. I'm not sure what I think happens now. I think before this kind of series of dreams, I was more on the level of that we just die, and maybe our consciousness goes into some other type of energy, or I don't know. But this dream definitely made me question, well, I really felt like that who she was in the dream was not a part of me or my consciousness. It felt very much like two different consciousnesses interacting.
Yeah. Yep. That makes total sense. And I mean, I know that in the literature, there's this notion that if you're in a lucid dream where you feel there's thought forms or projections of your own mind, you can do something like, clear thought forms now, or, just put that intention out there. And sometimes, everybody leaves the room except for one or two people. And then when you hone in on those, they really seem like other beings or other intelligences that are like oneself.
It's very strange. And yeah, I think it made me question those things, because especially as my mindset or my thoughts were of a particular way, and the dream didn't align with that. And I felt like, well, if it was all just me, then surely it would adhere to whatever I believe in, right? But
Right.
It didn't. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I've met other people who were very spiritual, practiced a lot of meditation. Even some people who are mentors within the Finders Course community, and they were skeptical that there was anything that happened afterwards. But then after some events like you were talking about, a lot of synchronicities, plus maybe some lucid dream experiences or visitations, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's sort of like, okay, well, maybe what I thought just isn't consistent anymore with my experience.
Yeah, I think that's quite common for people. But these dreams are so powerful. I felt that it was very healing, that I was able to meet with my Nana, especially because I'm here in Colorado. I had, tickets to go and see her in London, and she died just, a couple of weeks before that. And I felt very upset, that I couldn't say goodbye. I didn't get that final meeting with her. And being able to reconnect with her spirit or her soul or whatever it was in the dream space, knowing that I can do that at any time. And similarly with the other two people that died that year, it transformed the way I felt and think about death. And it can be very damaging for people if they don't have that grieving process, or they feel that they didn't get to say goodbye, resolve certain things. People can be in arguments and someone can suddenly die. And so knowing that there's that's not quite it, and there is more to being able to reconnect with someone, with their soul, or with their consciousness. It certainly changed how I perceive death and what I think about it.
Gotcha. Very cool. So we're at it's 1:56, and do you have like, are you able to like go for maybe like 15 more minutes? Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Would it be okay? So I think what I'd like to do is just take like a 3-minute self-care break, if that's all right with everybody, and then we'll come back and then we'll do some Q&A. All right. Thanks, Lana. Be right back. Okay. So just for a bit of Q&A here, we've got 2 questions in the lineup. One is, I often dream very restlessly, occupied, contracted. What would you recommend for me?
Yeah, who's this by David? Oh, no, Angelo. Can you maybe unmute and describe a bit more about what you mean by dreaming occupied or contracted?
Oh, and Lana, let's do this. Do you want to take down your screen share? So then we can just open up to the full Brady Bunch view.
Let's see how I do that.
Okay. I just did. Okay, I just did it. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and yeah, so where, let's see, Angela, where are you? Okay. Could you unmute your microphone and maybe elaborate a little bit?
Yes. Well, very often I notice when I get, well, there is like a point that I get like half awake, half sleeping, and then I notice it is, I cannot remember details, but there's just, it is very busy in my head. My body is somehow contracted, and it's, I feel like I'm getting drained and exhausted while being in a half dream state, half being aware of it. And I was wondering, do you have any suggestions of, well, maybe where, well, what causes it, or what to do with it to change it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think going back to the clear technique and maybe using some things like that, and perhaps using them whilst falling into sleep as well. I know a lot of people really benefit from setting a particular atmosphere in the bedroom and the environment that you sleep in. So, you know, creating the bedroom and the bed as a space only for restful sleep, whether that might be certain lighting, certain, you know, bedding or candles or smells in there, relaxing things such as lavender or mint or those kind of things that can help you whilst falling into sleep. Doing those breathing techniques, setting an intention for a restful sleep is huge as well. And then once in the dream state, if you're able to get into that kind of semi-lucid state, perhaps exploring that a bit or setting the intention as, you know, why is my mind feeling so busy? Asking those questions to the dream or to, you know, that consciousness behind the dream that we were talking about. What's keeping my mind so busy? Why am I not able to rest deeply? Really inquiring into that, and a lot of the time just by simply doing those few things, you can receive a lot of information back from the dream, whether it's that consciousness speaking back to you, or you might be shown something visually. But that's a great place to start for getting lucid and doing that kind of exploration work.
Thank you. I'm going to try that tonight.
Great.
Okay. So, and I'm sorry, Sue, I had missed your question from earlier. My mistake on that. So the question is, do you plan to be in a lucid dream with another lucid dreamer? So is it possible to have a meetup?
Sue, I can't see her, but great question, Sue. I think you are. Yeah, so that concept is called shared dreaming, and it's a very interesting one. I can share one of my early experiences with it that totally freaked me out, where I was actually in a room with the other dreamers. Not sure if I shared this with Michael before, but so I was in this kind of safari park, and this was a long time ago. And on the safari, I had one of those, wind up disposable cameras. And I was trying to take a picture of the animals, and I then discovered that the camera was, out of film. And I was really frustrated, and I suddenly woke up. And as I woke up, I saw one of my friends, who we were all in this party, so there's a lot of people in the room. One of my friends sitting up, and I looked at them, and they looked back at me, and then they just said, "Don't worry, I've got a spare camera in my bag," and lay back down and went to sleep. And that really freaked me out, first of all. And then I think I went back into the dream, and then that next morning when we woke up, a different friend from that person started describing my safari dream, saying, we were on the safari and we were trying to take pictures of these animals. That was my very first experience with shared dreaming. Really freaky, but nowadays, and being more involved in the lucid dreaming community and the astral projection community, there's many people that share shared dreams. By discussing with friends or being like, tonight let's meet in this certain place, you tell me what you do there or what I say, and in the morning we'll share it. And I've had many experiences like this with clients of mine as of recently, where I can actually meet them in particular spaces that they would like to work on in the dream and in our sessions, such as childhood homes, or help with healing practices by going to those spaces with them. And I'd say this is another one of those things, quite like with my experience of what happens when we die, where before actually having these experiences, I definitely thought, that's not really possible. And I'm not sure if I entirely believed that those things can happen. And only after having the experiences and waking up and describing things to people that I couldn't know, about certain things that are in their childhood homes or what they were doing in their dream that night. And then they've written the same things down, or they've voice recorded the same things. We can check the times on them, and it's accurate. So I would definitely say that shared dreaming is a possibility, and I hope you explore it for yourself.
All right. And there's another question here from David. Do you ever recommend using Galanthamine?
Yes, Galanthamine it's an interesting drug, I guess. It's an over-the-counter drug. You can buy it on Amazon. It's usually used for people who have Alzheimer's or dementia, I think, but in very low doses of, say, between 4 to 8 milligrams. It has been known to help people induce lucid dreams. And I will say that every single time I've ever used Galanthamine, I have been lucid 100% of the time, using between 4 to 8 milligrams. So I personally see nothing wrong with that, as long as you're, checking with your doctor that it's okay for you to use it, as long as you're not abusing it and using it night after night. It can be a very useful tool for when you really want to test something, you have a burning question, or you're in a situation where you really want to get lucid that night. then using something like galantamine can be very useful for people who aren't able to, naturally induce a lucid dream, or perhaps have been trying for a long time and have been unable to get lucid. I don't see any problem in that if that's something that works for you. But I will say that it is a stimulant. So some people who use galantamine have found that it's hard for them to get to sleep after taking it. So timing is really important.
Yeah, I've actually experienced that it's hard to come back to the waking state a little bit. But that's just one person's experience, meaning that I still feel kind of in the dream when I come back. Yeah, so let's see. Rosemarie had a question, and this I guess dovetails back to Sue's about lucid dreaming with other people or in groups. But there's a second part here. What about meditating together and make an appointment in the dream world? Or I guess meditating together prior to the dream and then making an appointment. And Rosemary, you can chime in here if that's not accurate. But that's
sure. Yeah. You got the right translation. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, part of it has already been answered because other people were asking similar questions. So, excuse me. But still to sort of really, make an appointment, sort of.
Yeah, I think that enhances things greatly especially if you can really lay out, your intentions as a group, specifically what time you're meeting, what year you're going to meet, what place, who's going to be there, really describing what you're going to do in that situation, just helps visually you to go over that, say before sleeping, having a plan in your mind of, when I see this space, I'll get lucid and I can start the meditation, or when I encounter this person, I'll get lucid and begin the practice. Those things are great for just an extra boost, I guess.
And you have been experimenting with that?
Yes. Yeah.
Lana, when you mentioned what year to visit, are you talking about like going back into the past?
Past or future. It can be quite an interesting experience to, meet in the future, or meet in the past, or meet in, a space that maybe no one has been to before. Let's all meet in Egypt, or let's all meet, in the middle of the ocean, or wherever it is, which I personally think adds to the entire experience, right? Because if you're able to use the dream space, why not use it for more experimenting, breaking those boundaries, and doing things that maybe we can't do in the waking state.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we've got one question here. We might have time for one or two more because I want to be respectful of your time, Lana, and everybody else's. At the end, we definitely want to know how we can see more of you and get get more of these tips, and if you're doing any classes coming up, or workshops or things like that. So a question from Christian here. I sometimes have very realistic dreams where things are not very cartoonish and there aren't obvious indicators that I'm dreaming. This can lead to false awakenings where I feel lucid and aware but without realizing that I'm dreaming. Sometimes I'll have multiple false awakenings where I realize that I'm dreaming and then wake up in my bed, but I'm actually still dreaming. Are there any techniques for breaking out of false awakening loops?
Yeah, that's a huge one, isn't it? And I think false awakenings are very frustrating, and especially when it keeps looping and you're going into 5 or 6 different times of, waking up, starting your day and doing all that, and then it happens all over again. And it can also be quite scary for people. I think they're quite funny. But personally, just what I've done is tying in reality checks, as we were talking about, things that you can do, actions you can take to test that you're definitely in a dream space. A great time to do that is when you're writing down your dreams or recording your dreams, or however you're using a dream journal. when you're waking up. A lot of people, as I mentioned, will wake up from a lucid dream and go straight back into another lucid dream. So when you're making those voice recordings or writing down your dream, performing a reality check like the hand flip, or another great one is pinching your nose. So if you're in your dream body and you close your nostrils, you can still breathe through your nostrils because you're not actually physically blocking them. So finding a reality check that works for you and linking that always to performing it when you wake up or when you're journaling in your dreams. And that way, immediately, at least if you're in a false awakening, you can get lucid and either properly wake yourself up or enjoy another lucid dream.
Awesome. Okay. Yep. And the feedback on that one in the chat is thanks. That's great.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Lana, really wanted to thank you for being here with everybody today and doing this. How do people get in touch with you and or find some of the classes and workshops you're doing?
Yeah, had a little screen on my presentation, but my website is the easiest way to link to all the things I do. It's my name, so lanasackwild.com, and that links to my other social media like Facebook, my Facebook page, or my Instagram, where I usually post different webinars I'm doing. I always upload those things on my YouTube channel as well, which is my company name, Get Lucid with Lana. I have a lucid dreaming retreat. It was actually scheduled for April, but due to the quarantine, we are thinking to now postpone that until August or September. But the retreat is called Dreaming Wide Awake, and it's going to be a 3-day lucid dreaming intensive. So we'll have different workshops, group activities, and it's a great time. You know, as we were mentioning in this chat, it's very powerful to be with other lucid dreamers, being in a space together where we can work on these tasks together and just dedicate a full 3 days to waking up in the dreams, waking up to our lives, building awareness, different techniques, and dreaming together. So I would love for some of you to check that out. That's on my website as well. And then, yeah, I usually just post, I do 2 series. One's called Get Dreaming With, which also goes on my Instagram and YouTube, where I interview lucid dreamers around the globe about different techniques they use personally, their unique dreaming histories, different courses that they offer. And I run another show called Get Lucid TV through YouTube, where I talk about lucid living techniques. So for me, the point of lucid dreaming is also improving our waking lives. So that show goes more into how to integrate what we learn whilst lucid back into our waking life, so that we're also using lucidity whilst we're awake.
Beautiful. Yeah. So the website is lanasackwild.com, and
yeah.
Your YouTube channel, which has all the different programs you mentioned, is, if people go to YouTube and put Get Lucid with Lana, then they'll find both of those?
Yeah.
Or was it 2 or 3 programs that you run?
I've got 3 going right now, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. Great to connect with so many of you. I'm really glad that you're all interested, and I think this is such a transformative practice. It really can transform your waking life and your dream life. We dream every night, multiple times. So, you know, you can either use it or lose it.
Amen. That's exactly right.
Hi, this is real quick. I have like a really quick question. I was like an hour and 15 minutes late. I didn't even know this meeting was happening. First of all, much appreciated to meet you, Lana. I have one really quick question. has to do with the Finder's book and discussing 24-hour awareness, and it has to do with theory of mind. I just want to know what was your take on theory of mind and lucid dreaming, something that I'm really interested in, mirroring somebody's thoughts, emotions, feelings, probably to like develop skills in like a lucid dream way faster. Just wanted to know your take on that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really cool studies about developing skills in the dream space. In particular, people have found a lot of athletes use it for improving in sports, practicing whatever they're working towards, and they found that not only can athletes heal injuries faster, but they also their performance is enhanced. Musicians and artists, creating art from the dreamscape, creating new music from the dreamscape. It's a very creative space. So depending on what you're wanting to work on or improve on, I would certainly say that getting lucid is a great way to kind of shift perspective and then enhance whatever skill you're looking to boost from that state, and then integrating that back into the waking state.
And specifically, I was talking about, for example, I know you're busy and everything. Say like I want to learn from a musician, a specific musician in a lucid dream. Instead of them teaching me, which is super powerful. I'm in the subconscious mind. I'm learning from in the subconscious. I'm getting those benefits and I'm practicing in it. But can I enter the body of the dream character who is teaching me these skills and embody that on a whole nother level?
Yeah, absolutely. I've shared a story in the past where when I was learning violin and I was feeling very stiff in my waking state, I was actually able to enter my violin in the dream. So even going beyond that, beyond thinking, can I enter my teacher? Can I enter the person? Thinking about bringing either the music to entering you entering the music, you entering your instrument, and going from those perspectives can be a lot of fun as well.
Oh, that's amazing. That's much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Enjoy it.
All right, got you.
So, yeah, great questions. All right, Lana, thank you so much once again, and maybe we'll do something like this again if you want to.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I would love to.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. Stay healthy and safe.
Infinite gratitude, y'all. Much love.
All right.